Hi guys and welcome back to Is It Worth It Reviews. Today we are talking about a portable DAP player, digital audio player, Shanling M1s. Probably my most affordable DAP review if I think about it. By the way, it's $220. And what does it offer? First of all, it's definitely on a smaller side. I think this size is called midi. I'm not really into the kids slang nowadays, but I think this one is some like medium sized. It's not big like Hibis that I reviewed recently. It's built nicely too, with the aluminum on the sides and then these glossy black scratch resistant glasses on the back and in the front. There is like a decently sized LCD display. It's not really big because the whole device is not that big, and then 3 physical buttons above it for pause, play, next song, previous song, and then there's one volume knob on the side that also doubles as a button to wake up your screen, turn off your device, turn it on, and also change the volume. It's pretty easy to control, of course. The display is touchscreen itself. It is kinda small, so you need some time to get used to it, but after that initial period, it actually functions quite well. On the side here you can see one USB input and micro SD card slot. And that leads me to the part that this thing, even though it does have Wi-Fi on board and Bluetooth, it doesn't include any online streaming services such as Spotify, Tidal, Qobuz or anything. You just load the files into the SD card and you play them. The only alternative to that is to connect it to your phone using Bluetooth connection and then use this one basically as a Bluetooth DAC that catches the stream from your phone, and there you can play anything you want, including those mentioned streaming services that lack on this DAP. In that case, as I said, you're using it mostly as a Bluetooth DAC, not actually as a DAP. Also, if you connect it to your PC using USB-C port, you can choose 2 modes. One is to be like a storage device, so you can just move your files to the SD card on this device. The other one is to switch on the DAC mode, in which case your PC will recognize this DAP as an external DAC, so once again you can use it as any other DAC. And then outputs. We have both 3.5mm single-ended and 4.4mm balanced output. The balanced output offers greater power and it does sound slightly punchier, more dynamic, you know, things that come with greater power handling. And if you have that option, I suggest using balanced output. If not, single-ended sounds pretty decent too, just slightly more mellow and less powerful. But how does this device sound, you may ask? Well, I started listening to it with several earphones and headphones, and I can say it sounds pretty neutral. Everything is there, nothing is missing. Bassline is pretty full, punchy, well-controlled. Mid-range is informative, it's precise, once again neutral, and highs are well extended. To my ears, sometimes with certain headphones and earphones, highs can sometimes sound a little bit sharp, but nothing too excessively or too annoyingly, but those can be on a slightly sharper side. This is not a mellow or soft or vintage sounding device. And it surprised me because like some time ago, before I even received this unit, I read somewhere that this DAP sounds warm and very bassy. I don't remember where, but I don't hear that. I can only imagine that somebody writing that was actually using some sort of in-ear that has really boosted bass response. Then he has mistaken this for warm sounding DAP, which is really not to my ears, and I tried it with several different earphones and headphones, including some really pretty neutral planars like VRM1 for example, and it sounded really tonally well balanced and well judged. But to fully assess how it really sounds, I compared it quickly with several other products that I had on hand and that I reviewed previously, and I started with a admittedly much more expensive DAP, a Hiby R6 III and also R5 II I had when I received this one, and I have to say both of these sound better, they have greater control, more detail retrieval, a better high frequency extension, but at the same times those high frequencies are smoother and more natural sounding. They do not have that slight hint of sharpness that M1s has. However, that was not really a fair comparison because these are much more expensive. And because I didn't have a price comparable DAP at my disposal, I started comparing this DAP with a price comparable DAC dongles attached to my phone that's acting as a digital transport. The conclusion that I came to is that this one roughly matches Hidizs XO, a really decent $100 DAC dongle. So that's roughly the sound fidelity, that sort of open, incisive, pretty neutral sound that you can expect from this DAP. Like you are using Hidizs XO, which is not just any dongle DAC at $100. It's probably the best sounding USB dongle DAC at that price. And why am I saying this? Because if maybe I don't look particularly excited about the sound fidelity of Shanling M1s. That's only because I'm reviewing so many things from like really high value brands that are not mainstream established brands like, I don't know, AudioQuest. So for example, to put that into context, if you would compare any of these, Hidizs XO or Shanling M1s, to something like Dragonfly Black from AudioQuest, both of these sound noticeably more revealing, incisive, and just cleaner and crisper overall. And if you're coming from something like that, from an older product of a well-established brand, you would be surprised how actually good sound on Shanling M1s is. But it's also not bringing a new and unseen price to performance ratio to the market, and that makes me like, yeah, okay, it's an okay product. But I realized that that's not the real feeling that a potential buyer of this DAP would have if his last mobile audio purchase was like several years ago, and especially if he followed mainstream media advice and like 5-star products. Yeah, I just wanted to put that into context. Hidizs XO is an excellent DAC at $100, and M1s is roughly on the same level as a DAP for $220. I still slightly preferred XO. It sounded just slightly more natural and softer in highs compared to more focused but kind of sharper, a little bit more analytical sound of M1s in highs. But that's there. In isolation, or if I listen to this one today and then after 3 days I was listening to this one, I couldn't notice a difference. So that basically leads me to the conclusion. If you need a DAP, a portable, small-sized but functional and well-sounding DAP that will not break your budget, this is as good as it gets, I suppose. It's nicely built, it functions well, it has both single-ended and balanced outputs. Its battery life is also quite good. I listen to it for several hours, then I leave it on standby for a few days, and it still runs on my first battery charge. I'm expecting more than 10 hours of playback, and I'm especially glad about its low consumption in a standby mode, because I don't have to think about it if I haven't been using it for a few days. For example, Hiby here uses much more power in a standby. When you don't plan to use it for a few days, it's better to completely turn it off. It'll drain that battery quite fast when not used. Shanling M1s doesn't. So once again, if a budget DAP is what you need and you don't mind it lacking streaming services, online streaming services, you're all about local files loaded into a micro SD card, this is a good offering. Now, what do you think about Shanling M1s? Do you think a device such as this still has a place in your like day-to-day life? Do you see a use case scenario for it, and would you buy it? Please comment down below the video. I'm actually curious to know this time. So that would be all for today, guys, and see you next time. Bye.